Here today is Nicolas Laporte, who is a new postdoc here at the IAC. He did the PhD at the University of Toulouse under the supervision of Roussel Pelliot on the topic he's going to discuss today, on the evolution of galaxies during the first billion years. He finished the PhD in October 2012, and now he's working here as a postdoc with Ismael Pérez Furnon on the Herschel group, working with data of the Spire and also in the instrument control center of Spire. So, Nicolas.
Christina for this introduction, so everybody heard me. So, as mentioned by Christina, the subject of my PhD was a search for the very high redshift object in the universe. And I performed this search using two different field of view. The first one was the lensing cluster, Abel 2667, to take benefit from the presence of a strong mass between us and the first galaxy. And I combined this search with the use of another file, a very large deep blank file, the WIRCam Ultra Deep Survey. And my talk today will focus on this very large deep blank file, the WIRCam Ultra Deep Survey. Okay. So here you have a brief outline of my talk. I will start by the scientific context, and I will explain you why is it so interesting to search for these first galaxies. And we will discuss a little bit the expectation from theoretical models. And I will also present you the famous technique I've used to search for distinct objects in this field, in the WIRCam Ultra Deep Survey. Then on the second part, I will present you the WIRCam Ultra Deep Survey, the design of the survey, the filters property, the wavelength coverage, etc. I will build different samples at redshift 5 up to 9. And I will use, in the third part of my talk, I will use these samples to study the evolution of the first galaxy. And we will see that to study the evolution of the first galaxy, we absolutely need to study the evolution of the UV luminosity function at very high redshift. So I will present you the method to compute the UV luminosity function and the results. And we will use at the end the results of this parameterization to study the role played by the first galaxy during the epoch of reionization. And I will finish by some conclusion and perspective. So first of all, the scientific context. But before giving you some words on the scientific context, I would like to present you the most distant object known to date. But I can give you two kinds of objects. I can give you the most distant object for which the spectral energy distribution, the photometry, is completely consistent with a very high redshift object, but without any spectroscopic confirmation. And in that case, the most distant object is this one, okay, from Danko, and selected using the CLASH survey. The CLASH survey is a survey carried with the Hubble Space Telescope and observing 25 clusters. So this source is a lens source with 3 images. Here you have the 3 images. You have the magnitude of this source and the photometric redshift, redshift 11. This is a photometric redshift, not a spectroscopic redshift. We don't have any spectroscopic confirmation for this source. But we can also say that the most distant object is the object for which we have a spectroscopic confirmation. And in that case, even if this source is still in debate, but the most distant object is the Matt-Lennart galaxy, published in 2010, with a spectroscopic, so first selected using the Hubble Ultra Deep Field, and then confirmed using Symphony observation. And the redshift, 8.6. Okay, so now some words on the scientific context and why is it so interesting to search for this first luminous object in the universe. Of course, it's really interesting to search this first luminous object to study the different properties of this object, such as the redshift, the age, the stellar masses, the star formation rate, etc., and also how these properties, these physical properties, evolve with the redshift. We can also study the evolution of the number of galaxies as a function of redshift. But we can also, in a more general context, study the role played by this first galaxy during the epoch of reionization. Because we know, thanks to quasar observations, that the intergalactic medium is fully reionized at redshift 6. And of course, the most likely hypothesis to explain this reionization at redshift 6 is the first galaxies. However, we are not able to explain the reionization using the first galaxy targeting in current survey. We are not able to reconcile the quasar observation with the first galaxy observations. And we will discuss this point at the end of my talk. Okay, so now some words on some results from theoretical models. On this plot, okay, on this animation, okay, first we know that according to current paradigm, the first stars had to appear at a redshift around 20, and that the first galaxy had to appear around redshift 10 or 12. We know that here you have the evolution of the starburst spectra from redshift 3 to 12, and you see that the shape of the spectra is shifted with the redshift. Okay, but the most important things that we know from theoretical model is this plot. This is the evolution of the luminosity function, the expected evolution of the luminosity function from redshift 7 in black to redshift 20. So this is the UV luminosity function is just the distribution in luminosity of the number density of galaxy for a given redshift. So you can study the evolution of galaxy by just studying the evolution of the luminosity function as a function of redshift. So here you have the luminosity of your objects, and here you have the density, the number density of objects. So here you have the faint object, and here you have the bright object. Okay, and if you choose a luminosity, you can see that the number density of galaxy decreases with the redshift. Okay, this is, for example, here. Okay, you have a strong decrease of the number density of galaxy as a function of redshift. Okay, but now some words on the method I've used to search for this first galaxy. I've used the famous Lyman break technique, combining two different criteria, non-detection and strong detection criteria, with the use of a color-colored diagram. So here I show you the shape of a starburst at redshift 6, and I'm sure that everybody can define the non-detection criteria and the strong, because you have also some filters plots here from the U bands to the K bands. Okay, so the non-detection and detection criteria we can apply to select redshift 6 object should be something like that. And you combine this non-detection and detection criteria with the use of a color-colored diagram here. Okay, and this color-colored diagram comes from the evolution of the color expected by different templates, such as elliptical template, spiral template, etc. And you will see, if you just try to plot the evolution of this color, that all galaxies with a redshift beyond, in that case, beyond 6.5 are located in this black box here. Okay, so this defines your color criteria. Okay, but before going any further, I would like to give you our main objectives. My main objective is to add strong constraints on the evolution of the first galaxy during the first billion years. But we have seen that if we want to study the evolution of the first galaxy, we absolutely need to study the evolution of the UV luminosity function. Okay. But I want to put strong constraints. And strong constraint means to use spectroscopic observation, because we need to confirm our object by spectroscopy. However, regarding the limit of current spectrograph, we can only observe and confirm by spectroscopy the bright source at high redshift. Okay, so here you have the evolution of the luminosity function, as seen from the ultra deep field. Here you have the bright object, and as you can see, if I want to select the bright source at high redshift, regarding the number density of objects, here, I need to cover a very large field of view. And this is exactly the reason why the WUDS survey was designed. Okay, perfect transition for my second part, the second part of my talk, the WUDS survey. So the WUDS survey is a very large, deep, long file, 400 square arc minutes, carried the Canada, France, Hawaii telescopes, and using the WIRCam instruments. On this slide, you have the name of the main people involved in this project and the different laboratory. The PI, the principal investigator of this project, is Rosa Pello, and as you can see, several people involved in the WUDS project are working here at the ASC. Okay, again, some words on the design of this survey. The WUDS survey covers the Groth Strip field. And maybe, as you know, the Groth Strip field has been observed by the CFHT-Legacy survey, showing this, okay, in this pictures by the blue square here, okay, the 1 square degree of the CFHT-Legacy survey. So the WUDS survey took benefit from the presence of very deep optical images in U, G, R, I, and Z coming from the CFHT-Legacy survey. But we took also benefit from the presence of a shallower survey, the WIRCam survey for WIRCam Deep Survey, led by Rich Bilby and published in 2010. The WIRCam survey covered the G, H, and K bands, so we just combine our own exposure in G, H, and K with the exposure coming from the WIRCam survey to improve the depth of our image in the near infrared, and we perform our own Y band image before we want to have a perfect coverage, a perfect wavelength coverage. Okay, this is just a comparison between our survey, the WUDS survey, and other current survey dedicated to explore the first galaxy, the bright object at high redshift. So here you have, okay. So here you have the brightness of the source here. So the depth, in fact, of the different survey, and here you have the effective surface covered by each survey. If you want to observe the bright object, so here at high redshift, you see that the most efficient survey to date is the WUDS survey. Again, some words on the filters property. You have the wavelength coverage, and as you can see, you have a perfect wavelength coverage in optical, and this is here, and this is absolutely required if you want to better constrain the photometric redshift of your quantities. You have here the depth, the 5 sigma depth of our images. So in red, you have the images from the WUDS survey, and in blue, you have the images of the coming from the CFHT Legacy survey. Okay, and now using the filters property and the images property, we can compute the expected number of sources in our field of view. It's very simple. You use the last parameterization of the UV luminosity function. We use the parameterization found in the Epoch of Ultra Deep field and published in Bouwens et al. 2008. And we found this number as a function of the redshift here. So these numbers are given for a perfect field of view without any incompleteness, without any bright object, etc. So in a 400 arcmin square field of view, and the error bars, of course, include the cosmic variance and the statistical errors. Okay, now we build the catalogs. So we use a sextractor in double image mode. We use a very famous way. This is probably the same way used in all the current surveys. So we use sextractor in double image mode. So if we use sextractor in double image mode, we need to use detection pictures, and of course we change the detection pictures as a function of the redshift interval explorer. So you have the different detection picture we use on this table. We use a very wide extraction parameters. We didn't use the default parameter of sextractor because we want to detect the maximum of objects. And each catalogs contain at least 50,000 detections. Okay, so let's start the search. And we start with the air dropout sample. So with the redshift 5 objects, with the non-detection in 2 bands, strong detection in 2 bands, this color criteria, and after visual inspection. And the visual inspection step is absolutely needed because we use a wide extraction parameters. So if we want to remove, some pixel in the halo of a bright galaxy, you absolutely need to perform the visual inspection step. And we retain 425 objects, and you have the distribution in luminosity shown here in this plot. We can continue with the redshift 6 objects. Again, 3 non-detection constraints, 2 strong detection constraints, the color criteria, and after the visual inspection, 37 sources are retained as good candidate, and you have the distribution in luminosity on this plot. We can continue with the redshift 7 objects. Now we have 4 non-detection constraints in U, G, R, and I, the color criteria, and after the visual inspection, we retain 6 objects as good V dropout candidates. You have the photometry of these sources. And for your eyes, here you have the thumbnail image, and you can confirm the non-detection from the U bands to the I bands. Yes, all these samples are called dropout. The dropout means just that the break, if you remember the shape of the starburst, you have a strong break. The dropouts mean that the break should appear in the Z band. And this is the reason why we didn't apply any criteria in the Z band for this object. Okay, we can continue with the redshift 8 object. And now we have 5 non-detection constraints from the U bands to the D bands. And at the end, after visual inspection, we return 4 objects. You have the photometry of these objects. We have 2 very bright objects for a redshift 8 sample, here and here. Okay. And again, for you add the thumbnail image from the U bands to the K short band, and you confirm the non-detection from U to D. Okay, let's continue with the redshift 9 objects, but now we have, after visual inspection, we have 6 non-detection constraints, and at the end, no robust G dropout retained. Okay, so now I have built 4 different samples from redshift 5 to redshift 8, and I can, using the photometry, the spectral energy distribution of each candidate, I can deduce the photometric property of each source. And to do that, remember that my PhD supervisor was Rosa Pello. So to do that, I use Hyper-Z with the standard template library composed by, template from starburst, of spiral galaxy, elliptical, etc. And the property given by Hyper-Z are the redshift, the rending, the star formation rate, and probably the most important thing is the redshift probability distribution. And we will see at the end why this part is very important, why the redshift probability distribution is really important for this study. Here you have the result for the air, I, and D dropout sample. So you can see that the distribution for the air dropout sample is around redshift 5, for the I dropout sample either on redshift 6, and for the D dropout sample either on redshift 7. So it's completely consistent with what is expected for this kind of sample. You have the redshift probability distribution for the I dropout, and for the D dropout sample, this is the redshift probability distribution. You have the probability as a function of redshift for each object. Some words on the Y dropout sample. You have and you can see on this table, okay, here, that the best fit is found at each time it's found for a low redshift solution. So low redshift, no, not a low redshift, the high redshift solution, sorry, with the 1 sigma confidence interval here. Okay, have a look on this column. You see that the best fit is found for a very small dust extension. And this is completely consistent with what is expected by people working on the evolution of dust at very high redshift. For example, I mentioned the work of from Olga Kushati here. So this is another good point to say that probably we have 4 robust candidates, 4 Y dropouts robust candidates. Of course, we have 2 strong star formation rate, but the star formation rate is strongly correlated to the luminosity. And if you remember what I said for the Y dropout sample, I just said that we have 2 bright objects. So, okay, we have 2 high star formation rate. And you can see on the redshift probability distribution that we have no low redshift solution. Okay, so now I have computed the basic property of each candidate. And I can use this property to study the evolution of the UV luminosity function. Okay, the UV luminosity function, I remind you that it's just the distribution in luminosity of the number density of objects for a given redshift. And the method I decided to use takes benefit from the redshift probability distribution. This is the Monte Carlo method. I will explain you this method on the next slide. Okay, and we can say that the shape of this UV luminosity function is well constrained at redshift, let's say 5 or 6. So I can use my air dropout sample, so I can use my redshift 5 objects to test this method, to validate it, and to apply it at redshift 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, some words now on the method I use. So it's a Monte Carlo simulation method based on the redshift probability. distribution. So at each iteration, you choose a random probability. Using this random probability, you can assign a redshift, and using this random probability and the redshift probability distribution, you can assign a redshift at each object. Using this redshift and the spectral energy distribution, you can compute the UV luminosity for each object. Okay, you perform these steps n times, and after n iterations, you have a sample with n times the size of the original sample, but with the same redshift distribution. After, you select only the sources with a redshift included in this interval, okay, defined as the mean redshift plus or minus 0.5. So for example, if you want to compute the UV luminosity function of redshift 7, you have to select all the objects included between 6.5 and 7.5. After you distribute each object per beam of luminosity, per beam of magnitude, you then corrected this number for the incompleteness. I will explain you on the next slide how I compute the incompleteness of my sample. And you divide each number by the co-moving volume, because the UV luminosity function is the evolution of a density. So if you want density, you just have to divide this number by the co-moving volume. And you compute the error bars, including the statistical errors and, of course, the cosmic variance. And we follow the method from Trenti and Stavielli to compute the cosmic variance. And, of course, of empty beam, if you have no object in a beam of luminosity, you can compute an upper limit on the number density of object. Okay, now some words on the incompleteness. The incompleteness of our sample comes from the method that we used. And remember that we use Sextractor in double image mode, so we use a detection pictures. And if we use the detection pictures, we are not able to detect source fainter than the depth of our detection picture. So this is the first part of my incompleteness on this plot here. But remember that we use the Lyman-Wright technique, combining non-detection and the use of a color window. And this color window imply this incompleteness. Okay, here. Okay, and the final incompleteness I've used to correct my number to correct my number density is just the combination of these two shapes. Okay, so now we can test the method on the redshift 5 sample. Here you have the results. Our points are in red. Okay, we seem consistent with previous results. But if we want to be sure that we are in good agreement with the previous results published in the literature, we can, for example, compare our parameterization of the UV luminosity function. So we adopt a parameterization. We choose the parameterization defined by Chester in 1996, using 3 different parameters, V stars and alpha and M stars, and we found, okay, our parameterization are here. Okay, and you can compare, for example, for the results from the UV Ultra Deep Field or from another OCAI survey, that, okay, we are consistent with previous results. Looking, just have a look at the error bars we found comparing to the other. Okay, so we can now apply the same method at redshift 6. Okay, our points are in red, here per limit, and here. Okay, the parameterization, again, seems consistent with other results. Continue at redshift 7, and with the same conclusion, and at redshift 8. At redshift 8, okay, the 2 points coming from the WUDS survey are this one, and this one. This one comes from the study of the lensing cluster I mentioned during my introduction, about 2667. But for the WUDS survey, this one and this one, the parameterization. And even if we found any robust G-dropout object, so any object at redshift 9, we can give an upper limit here, okay, which is consistent with previous upper limit. The dashed line is the parameterization compute using only this point, so the faint end slope of the UV luminosity function. But probably for you, the best way to see the evolution we found in the WUDS survey is to do this animation from redshift 5 to redshift 9. And again, if you choose a luminosity, you will see that there is a strong decrease of the number density of objects. So from redshift 5 to 9, this is the result of the WUDS survey. The results, the points coming from the WUDS survey are shown in red. But we can also study the evolution of the UV luminosity function by studying the evolution of each parameter, because we use the Schechter parameterization with 3 different parameters. So the evolution, here you have the evolution of the M star parameters, and you can see here, you can see a strong evolution from redshift 5 to 9. Okay, here you have the evolution of the 1 sigma confidence interval. And of course, if we use different parameters, we can give the evolution of each parameter as a function of redshift. And this is where here you have the evolution of each parameters. Okay, so now I have compute the evolution of the UV luminosity function. Okay, but to do what? For example, to compute the role played by the first galaxy during the epoch of reionization. And you know that the most likely hypothesis to explain the reionization is the UV photons. The UV photons produced by this first galaxy. And we can compute the number of UV photons produced by the first galaxy using the UV luminosity function parameterization. So we just integrate the UV luminosity function up to the depth of current survey. But be careful, we are talking about UV photons, so we have to consider the dust extinction. And to correct the UV density for dust extinction, we apply the Shiminovich et al. Method, okay, using the UV, the beta slope of each candidate. And on this plot here, in black, you have the evolution of the UV density photons without any dust correction. And in red, you have the evolution of the UV luminosity function, but including this dust extinction. Okay, but we know, thanks to quasar observation, that at redshift 6, the intergalactic medium is completely reionized. So we can compute the number of UV photons required to keep the universe reionized at redshift 6. To do that, we use the matter equations here. Okay, you see the equation. And we have plot this number at an evolution of redshift here. And the conclusion, and you can see the conclusion, is that we are not able to explain the reionization using the first galaxies. Or more precisely, we can say that we are not able to explain the reionization using the first galaxy targeted in the WUDS survey and in other current survey. Because remember, I compute these points, this UV density using the UV parameterization and integrated this parameterization up to the depth of current survey. What's happened if I go deeper? If I go deeper, you have on this plot here. Okay, the red curve is the previous curve. What's happened if I go deeper? If I consider sources 50 times fainter than the current sources, you see that we can start to explain the reionization. But there is probably another explanation. Is the role played by other sources? And here you have an explanation published in the Michel et al. It's the Trenti paper in 2012. This is the role of the gamma rebels. But look, we have strong error bar on each UV density produced by the gamma rebels. So probably the answer, if we want to understand what's happened at redshift 6, is to combine these two explanations. Okay. So now it's the conclusion of my talk, but before giving you the last word of my talk, I would like to discuss a little bit about these two objects. The first one, I perfectly know this object here. Okay. Here, this one. This one is an object found behind the lensing clusters using ground-based images from I-band to K-band and combined with Spitzer observation up to 24 micrometers. You can see there is no detection in I, Z, Y, and G band, strong detection after in H and K band, and some constraint up to 24 micrometers. The spectral energy distribution is completely consistent with a very high redshift object. And if I perform the same SAD fitting work than I present you during this talk, I found a photometric redshift around 9 or 10. It's a bright object, so I requested time to observe this source by spectroscopy. I got X-shooter observations, but unfortunately, on the X-shooter spectra, I found 3 or 4 emission lines. And this emission line played this source not at redshift 9 or redshift 10, but at redshift 2.2. Okay, 2, at redshift 2. And now, what can we say about the second object, this one here? Published for the first time in 2010 using the Hubble Ultra Deep Field data, claim at redshift 10, and in the Nature paper you have this point, this constraint on the UV density of object at redshift 10 using this object. And 2 months ago, another study using another set of data select again this source, but now with a redshift 11.9. What can we say about this object? The answer was given 2 weeks ago in an Astrophysical journal paper, because this source was observed by spectroscopy, and this source was placed at 2.2. So the conclusion is, even if we have object with a spectral energy distribution completely consistent with the high redshift object, we cannot claim that this object is a real object. And you see now the conclusion of my talk. The conclusion of my talk is that I've just presented you the first part of the WUDS project. And the second part of the WUDS project is just starting now. It's the confirmation by spectroscopy of each candidate. And if I want to confirm each sample from redshift 5 to redshift 8, the WUDS survey covers a north field. Okay, so I have to use instruments in the European Northern Observatory, and the best way to confirm and to put the strong constraint on this evolution of the UV luminosity function is to use a combination of 2 different instruments. OSIRIS, of course, instead of the GTC, to confirm the redshift 5 and redshift 6 sample. And of course, I'm waiting for the future near-infrared multi-object spectrograph, EMIR, to confirm the redshift 7 and 8 objects. So I absolutely need, I need to combine these 2 instruments to give the first strong constraint in the bright end of the luminosity function. And just to finish, in the next 10 years, you know that 2 new observatory will be available. It's the James Webb Space Telescope and the European Extremely Large Telescope. And probably these 2 new observatory and the new instruments installed on this observatory will probably push the boundary of our observable universe from redshift 7, 8 up to redshift 15, and why not to observe and we'll observe probably the first galaxy, and we'll start to observe the first star. And I think I can stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicolas. And we have time for a few questions.
Actually, 2 short questions.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is about the type of source that you
that we use.
I mean, in this misidentification of high redshift sources,
yeah.
They are either 10 or 2. What is the break that you are seeing to think that a source that is a redshift 2 is actually, well, it's the other way around?
Okay, here you have the results for the object I know, the redshift 9 object. You are talking about the source I killed, okay. And here you have the shape of this object. The answer for this object is that it's an object combining 2 different stellar populations. A young stellar population responsible for the strong emission line we observe, and an old stellar population responsible for the large break.
So, but you see a break, right? You see
yes,
that
yeah.
There are several band passes where you don't see anything, and then there are some others where you see your object. So there should be a break in the spectrum that you are confusing.
Yes, it's not, okay. If on the sun main image, the break we observe here is just because we don't have a deeper image in I and Z. Because if we have deeper image in I, we will detect this object. For the first one, for this one.
Yeah. Okay. May I ask you something else. It's about you determine photometric redshift by comparison with templates.
Yeah.
What are the templates? I'm not asking what kind of templates you are using, but what are the resulting templates that you get after fitting? I mean, what is the kind of galaxy that is behind?
For most of our sources at very high redshift, if I understand your question, the best template is the elliptical template. Okay, that's all. For the redshift 8. I can give you for the redshift 5, but I don't have the results here, but I can, if you want, give you the different templates found for the redshift 5 SADP.
So, but the high redshift targets, they are ellipticals. That's what you're, okay.
But probably we have to update the template we use to select this very high redshift galaxy, because you see that, okay, even if we use standard template, we found this galaxy at redshift 9 and this other at redshift 10. Well, they are in fact at redshift 2. So probably there is a strong work to do to update this template, the template used to determine the photometric redshift.
Okay, thank you.
Well, it seems that because of these targets also are so interesting, you go and then to try to confirm whether or not these are real set equal 9 or whatever. But in the middle, along the plots you have shown,
yeah,
there are many, or at least there are some of these luminosity functions are not done properly. I mean, with object with a spectroscopy.
Absolutely.
Right? So the point that now you have somehow pinpoint the fact that it for sure can happen at high redshift, but it will surely happen also at not so high redshift. I'm thinking in set equal 4 and bigger. So what besides this specific thing that you aim in the future, so that means confirming whether these high set things are real high set, I suppose there will be people or projects or whatever trying to just make this match between the thing that you can do with these photometric studies and things which you don't know, because all this is going to be the base of all for research nowadays, right?
Yeah. The study, you mean the study of the contamination? Okay.
Most of the luminosity function that you have shown,
Yeah, sure.
They are made out of plot. I mean, they tell like this one that you have demonstrated that it.
For example, this one at redshift 9, because we have two different parameterization, but okay, this one is just photometric sample. Yeah. We have no photometric. The only point we have with spectroscopy confirmation is this 2 in violet, because it comes from the absence of source in the field. But that's all.
Which is the highest set value with reliable spectroscopic data that we have up to now? The highest set we can trust.
For the UV luminosity function, with the shake, probably redshift. With all objects in the sample confirmed by spectroscopy, redshift, let's say 6 or 5 or yes, less than. No, it's just photometric work. But if we want, with the new instrument, we will be able to constrain a bit more this function.
Any other question?
Hello. Maybe I get lost somewhere, but when you make the photometric redshift, you obtain a fit when you have no extinction at all?
For the Y-dropout only.
Okay, and these dropout, well, they are not used for the ultraviolet luminosity function, isn't it? I mean, for the ultraviolet luminosity function, you add an extra extinction.
Not to compute this density, but to compute the UV photons density, yes, I have to correct the luminosity for dust extinction, but not to compute the luminosity function.
Okay. And the other question, all the galaxies that you find, they have also a very high star formation rate? I mean...
Yes, but the star formation rate is correlated to the luminosity. So don't forget that we are looking for very bright objects at high redshift. So this is the reason why we have objects with a a very strong star formation rate, because we are targeting the very bright object at high redshift.
Yes, that in this high star formation rate, you will have a high number of supernovae, so you will have a high incidence of gamma ray burst in this kind of galaxy. You can correct in function of the star formation rate you obtain. You can add an extra contribution for the reionization due to gamma ray burst. Mm-hmm. It is possible to do.
I don't know. I don't have the answer that I can thinking about it.
Okay, thank you.
More questions? No? Okay, if not, let's thank Nicolas again.
Thank you.